My name is Michael Coates. I'm a former firefighter, but I'm also a former soldier. And it's the stories from the individuals within this military community that I'm desperate to document. This episode features someone who is to this day overcoming significant adversity. He was an army medic who was responsible for helping others. Whilst doing this job, he became a casualty himself. Episode 5, Simon Harmer. This is Declassified. I'm just going to start this with a real simple yes or no. If you could go back and sign on that dotted line again and join the military, would you?
Yep.
Interesting. But before all that, let's go right back. You was born in Winchester, 1976.
Yes, yeah.
What was home life like for you growing up?
It was a simple way of life, I suppose. I've got a twin brother. He's 2 minutes older than me. We're very different. It was a safe environment. There was no trauma or drama. My mum and dad worked hard. We often had to stay with our grandparents because they used to work night shifts. So it was for me and my brother. It was a very easy, not a rich. We weren't well off, but it was easy. It was an easy way to grow up. There was no drama.
Yeah, so I mean, we hear it time and time again, guys joining up because they're running away. I certainly did, and but that wasn't the case with you. So why did you join up then?
Do you know what? I grew up in that time where on most Saturday evenings there was a war film on of some sort. My grandfather was in the Second World War. He was I was quite proud of his background. He was an officer in the Royal Navy. And he used to tell me all these stories about what he used to get up to. My grandmother, she was in the WRAF and she got higher awards than he did, and he was quite proud of that fact. So there's a whole long line of relatives and sort of grandparents that had joined. And my dad's dad actually was in the First World War, and he died from the effects of being in the First World War. So there's been a family theme, I suppose, of joining the military of some sort.
But it's interesting because you talk about there about TV being such a big influence during that 90s period.
Absolutely,
during 97, I was obsessed with Soldier, like growing up.
Yeah.
And watching all that kind of TV around it.
Yeah.
So so joining up, I mean, you joined. Well, I'll let you explain it. Who did you join?
So I joined in 97, and actually, I joined because I actually wanted to do something else. So I wanted to join the fire brigade, but I left school without any qualifications, which was entirely my fault and not anybody else's. And I realised that if I wanted to join the fire brigade later on, I'd have to have something behind me, some sort of life experience or other skills that would be more attractive to join the fire brigade. So I specifically joined as a medic, as a combat medical technician in the Royal Army Medical Corps.
So there was no other attraction apart from using it as a stepping stone?
Yeah, absolutely. I only intended really to serve the minimum, really, I suppose, which whatever that was, whether it was 4 or 5 years, and then get out and join the fire brigade.
I mean, you didn't do the minimum. You did 13 years all in all, but I'm jumping there. Can you give like a brief overview of what you did? So you joined down T7, and then where was we after that?
Well, so my full military career was 17 and a half years. It got interesting at my 13-year point.
Okay, yes, yeah.
But then I did the normal things. I did the normal tours you'd expect. My initial training was a year long. It was quite a long time. And then I did a couple of tours of Bosnia, all the exercises under the sun all over the world. I did Egypt, Bright Star in 99. I did Canada. Literally, the one thing they told me when I joined the army is not to volunteer for anything. I volunteered for everything because I knew that I'd get something at the end of it, and it's usually adventure training.
Yeah,
that was the attraction to me, and so. And then later on I went to the invasion of Iraq in 2003, and then I was back in the UK for about 6 weeks and then got deployed out to the Congo in Central Africa.
So, going from leaving the UK, UK out for me was Germany, flying out to Iraq 2003. It was an intense period of time because there was no comms with family back home, no communications with family back home, and we were in a fairly intense environment. Coming straight out of that, and then only a few weeks later into the Congo, what was the main differences between the two?
One, the fact that nobody knew we were there. So everything was Iraq in the news. Iraq. The Congo was all about, well, from where I was sat, it was about Jack Chirac and Tony Blair kind of kissing and making up over the Iraq War. That's how it seemed to us at the time.
Okay.
And it was the first EU-led mission in Central Africa. So we were out there with Swedish troops, troops from Belgium, all over sort of Europe, the European continent. And that's where we were. We were there providing medical cover for the engineers that we followed out.
And that was what you was doing?
Yeah.
What was day-to-day life like out there? Because it's very interesting because I don't know anything about the Congo, and I was in at the time.
So it was dressed up a little bit more than it was. It was hairy. So we used to get attacked in inverted commas every sort of Friday and Saturday by the locals. It was just really drunk.
Yeah.
But the first time it was quite exciting, and we all jumped out of our sleeping bags and jumped into these pre-prepared trenches that we had. But by the third time it happened, we were like complaining about having to get out of our because I couldn't hit a barn door from a metre away. So it was probably actually safer to stay in your DOS bag and your sleeping bag than it was actually to move.
Yeah.
So it was quite exciting. It was interesting. Being in Central Africa wasn't what I expected at all.
In a good way.
Yeah, in a good way and a bad way. So, there was stuff going on there, and what we were trying to do is make a safe area, about an 8-kilometre safe area for people to flee to. And that's what we set up. But we're out there with the French, and they were an interesting bunch to be around. We were with their para commandos, who were awesome. We were also attached with some of their logistics guys who weren't so good, and they liked. They had quite a lot of negligent discharges, so they kept on accidentally firing off weapons all the time.
Well, there we go. And I was going to say that's the French for you, but you've got two contrasts there, haven't you? You've got someone who's really good and someone who's really poor, and the differences between the two. And I'm not going to dwell too much on more on the Congo, but it's like I say, it is an interesting point. Was you dealing with a lot of medical stuff out there? What's day-to-day life like for you?
Actually, it wasn't really. It was more like humanitarian stuff we ended up doing, and our hierarchy used to get excited about an individual, for example. And I remember one guy that they were kind of flapping about, and they brought him in, and the doctor had a look at him, and he knew straight away what was wrong with this guy. And so he had shingles all over his back, which was really, really bad. And there was a few other things wrong with him. And the doctor just said, my doctor just said, oh, he's HIV positive, or he's got AIDS. To which this guy that brought him in, the guy that was in charge, literally jumped back about 10 metres because he thought he was going to catch it from just breathing the same air.
Yeah.
And it was just quite amusing seeing people's reaction to things. And there's not much you could do for this guy. He was going to live or for a short time or maybe a bit longer, but eventually his condition would have caught up with him.
It's would you say, like, because I know I've spoken to medics who've been out with the Ebola crisis and whatnot. Would you say that, I'm not putting words into your mouth here, but would you say life is cheaper out in Africa? It just seems, everyone I speak to, it just seems that way.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of places where life seems cheap apart from your life.
Yeah.
So the person you're talking to, but life is cheap. Yeah. I found that in Afghanistan and Iraq, to be fair, but Africa as well. It felt that that life it wasn't such a big issue, but
Death.
yeah.
In between that, so we've had Iraq and then the Congo, and where it's fairly quiet for you medically, and then you've done a lot of stuff in between that, and then deploying to Afghan in 2009 and that's when your medical kind of expertise really came into its own.
Yeah.
What was it like then? Firstly, deploying. What was your role within that, in the absolute immediate?
So when there's a lot of confusion about whether people were going, who was going, and what we were going to do when we got there. So it was really quite vague about what anybody was doing. And initially, only half our unit was going, and then everybody went. And my job initially out there was to sit in my mind, is to sit in a big tent, drinking lots of coffee, eating donuts, and pressing a big red button that would send medical assets out onto the ground. That was what, in my head, that's what I thought I'd be doing. I never did that job. As soon as I landed in Afghanistan, my boss, one of the 2IC of the regiment, approached me and said, Sergeant Harmer, you're going out onto the ground now. You're not now staying in Camp Bastion. And I was like, okay, cool. Where am I going? And he said, you're going to a place called PB4 in Babaji. And I was like, oh my God, it hasn't even got a name. It must be pretty awful there. But you just suck it up, because that's the job you're supposed to, I was a medic and that was my job. So I did that 4 days initial pre-deployment training in theatre training. And then I was deployed straight onto the ground from there.
And that's where my confusion was at the start. So I apologise that this is now at your 13-year
Yeah.
So you're super experienced and you've been all over the world doing this kind of stuff. But there's one difference with Afghanistan. You deployed, you're doing this role, but you're married only a short period of time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we'd been married at that point, I suppose, 2 months when I got out there.
Yeah.
And then obviously things were just about to change for both of us.
But before we move on, before we go on to that, was it different? Did you feel like you was putting yourself into more risk when you went out there because someone else is now, I suppose, depending on you a little bit more?
I didn't actually. That's an interesting thought. I'd never thought about that. I was very conscious of that there was somebody else that I needed to consider, because I hadn't done that before. You just kind of lived life. But yeah, I was conscious in the back of my mind that I had to be there for somebody else as well.
It's I've alluded to it before on a few of the previous podcasts, and we often forget that there's the wife or the partner at home, and certainly the children as well. And they must be really going through it. I know my mum did when I went to Iraq in 2003, and it must just be real painful for people being at home, especially 2009. It was pretty
busy.
Intense.
Yeah,
busy in Afghan.
The first time I got on the sat phone to Marissa, there was, we were getting shot at in the compound, and my wife was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's nothing, darling."
Yeah, it's nothing. It's crazy. The what's about to happen next is what certainly doesn't define who you are, but it was to change your life. So we move a couple of weeks forward now. So you deploy, you move out to your area of ops, essentially your area of operations, and then can you just kind of lead us on from there? Talk about the initial kind of posting out there,
Yeah.
and then what's going to happen.
So,
next.
In the 26 days that I was actually on the ground, it was the most violent time I'd ever experienced in the military. Both from the point of view of getting into firefights and contacts, and just having to treat the people that we treated. And although it wasn't a huge amount of people, but the amount of trauma on singular people was just ridiculous. I actually met one of the guys I treated just by chance the other day. I hadn't seen him for 9 years.
Yeah.
he put his rucksack down on an IED, an improvised explosive device, and I mean it's lucky he put his rucksack on it because it threw him through the air. He landed, and actually all he did was break his tib and fib. So he's an extremely lucky bloke. But he was my first sort of casualty out there. But then after that, it was just almost like a floodgate. And
what kind of stuff, like, because
gunshot wounds, IEDs, particularly there was one that was there was a guy that was hit about 70 meters outside our patrol base, and we heard the boom. So we were on an O group, an orders group in the evening, and then this boom, and we're like, that's pretty close. So we just grabbed our med kit, went to the front gate, and they'd brought this guy in, and there was dust and smoke everywhere, and when if you see a casualty, there's always that split second of, right, I've got to do this, but then for me it was like, I've got to do this, and this and this, and we used, so both legs blown off. Left leg, although it was still there, it was degloved, completely degloved of skin and tissue. Arm damaged, a whole bunch of other different injuries. Some of them I only found out after he was after he'd left us. We used 14 pressure dressings on his wounds. We also had these abdominal dressings, which were 4 times the size of a normal dressing. We used 2 of those. I think we used certainly 2 tourniquets. I don't know if we used one on his arm. And the amount of pressure I had to put on the tourniquet on his right leg was ridiculous. Like if you've ever put a tourniquet on, it hurts. It was like 2 turns. We must have turned this about 6-7 times to stop the bleeding.
And what?
I was covered in blood.
It's so far removed from normal life, this, and especially because we're not in a hospital, we're just in a compound.
Yeah, just outside a compound. Yeah.
And I mean, you can Google Afghan compound and see what they look like. It's not a sterile environment.
No. Yeah.
And you're at high risk. You've just said there, you're constantly getting casualties in. And is that because sometimes it's only afterwards, when you come out the risk area, where you start feeling issues and problems? When you was in the risk area and when it was actually happening, was it just too busy to even think about it, or was it just like a process, like, this is a casualty, let's get it resolved, get him shipped off, let's crack on?
Yeah. And obviously out there, you what you're basically doing is the real basic stuff, and you're just hoping that the MERT comes as the Chinook, the medical emergency response team. You're just hoping that they'll come as quickly as they can to get him to the best hospital at that time in the world, which was Camp Bastion. You're doing, although we've been trained to quite a high level, there's only so much you can do. There's only, at some point, we need to get rid of him. And actually, we treated him for about half an hour, I think, which went in 5 minutes.
Before you got picked up?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
So it was quick. It was very quick. And I was, so there's 2 of us there. When in fact, I'll be honest with you, there were 6 of us treating him. So there's me and my medic and 4 other just blokes. And, sometimes I was directing some of the treatment. I was like, right, do this over here, or get that on there, or that needs turning more, that tourniquet needs to be tightened. So it was a group effort. And me and my medic, when the dust had settled and the helicopter had gone, we were just like left with all this detritus around us, all this stuff that needed to be cleaned up, all these packets that had been opened, and kind of just completely spent, just sat there like, and we'd only been on the ground for like 48 hours.
Oh, really?
And 2 IDs in less than 48 hours.
So it's that's a big culture shock coming into this.
Yeah.
Gee,
and bearing in mind, there's no doctor there either. We were in a place.
I was just about to say, you're the senior guy.
Yeah. So, if we had a doctor, was on the end of a sat phone if we needed them. So where we were, there was no doctor either.
So you're just to summarise that, you're the senior guy in the
In the-
patrol base.
yeah.
How many's in there? Roughly?
At that point, so the troops that we joined, it was a Light Dragoon battle group, but I only ever saw 3 Light Dragoons, which was their CO, their RADOP, and a cross-gel sniper that the CO had dragged back in the army. So we were with the Mercians and the Welsh Guards initially, but they had done the whole of Panchai Palang.
What's that?
The Panther's Claw, that operation in 2009. So they'd been battered, utterly battered, and they were ready to go home. They wanted to. This was the end of their tour, and they wanted to go home. So there wasn't even really enough blokes there. It was a platoon minus.
How many is that?
Probably about 20.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry,
for each platoon. So there's probably, in the location we were at, initially there's probably about in between 50 and maybe 60 people.
And we got 50 guys, 2 IEDs in the first 48 hours. That's pretty intense. And the next couple of weeks, was it a similar kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. And we get into firefights, and then sometimes the fallout of those firefights would come knocking at our front door. And that wasn't a nice experience. I didn't enjoy that part of it. I mean, there was one funny moment when there was a massive panic going on, and this guy's been shot, and so me and my medic ran to what we called the side gate, and there was an Afghan civilian stood there who had been shot, but like 6 months ago. And he'd come back into the patrol base to say, please don't shoot me. I'm going into my field. Please don't shoot me again. Because basically the last time he'd been out in his field, he got shot. And it was only because he was in the field at the time. And I don't know who shot him, whether it was our guys or their guys. But he just came in and said, so he was showing everybody his wound. He's going, yeah, this is where I got shot. And please don't, I'm going into my field again, but please don't shoot me again. Yeah. And it was that, and he had a smile on his face. He was just laughing. He thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Did you treat all casualties? Anybody that whether we absolutely.
So
from Taliban, British troops,
locals,
coalition,
anybody that needed it, I'll treat them. And I was really rigid with that. I wouldn't mess about with that.
Let's take you to the fateful day. And just in as relaxed as you want to talk about it, because it is incredible. I mean, it's an incredible couple of hours.
Yeah. So we were supposed to leave really early in the morning, probably around 4ish, I guess. And I remember waking up before my alarm went off because I didn't want to wake the other guys that were in our little building. So I grabbed my kit. And just went outside, and we had a stove outside. I lobbed some Hexia on it, which are the fuel blocks, and got myself some breakfast. I sorted myself out, made sure everything was ready to go, and then grabbed my kit, and then I went to the front gate to wait for everybody else.
And what we do is just a normal patrol.
Yeah, it was. Well, actually, it was more than just a normal patrol. We were going to go we're going to leave the compound for about 3 days, a group. Okay. And we were going to go out and set up an overwatch position to protect a Chinook that was going to land and unload more troops, so we could both go through some compounds. Our interpreter was late, and I actually feel that probably saved my life. In reflection, I think the fact that he was late saved my life. Absolutely. So he decided that being in his sleeping bag was more important than going for a walk, and we left later than we should have done. It was coming up to around 5 o'clock. It wasn't. It was gone 4:30, but it was coming. So it's coming up to 5:30 before we left. To 5 o'clock before we left. I remember, everything changed when we left. The sort of the little jokes and the smoking all stopped, and then everybody lined up because everywhere we went obviously was in single file, and we left our patrol base.
Why is it in single file?
Everywhere we went, we followed the man at the front with a Vallon, which was the metal detector, and he cleared the route for us to follow.
Yeah.
I was probably the 10th man in this group of 20 blokes, and I got about 150 metres outside the patrol base when I activated an improvised explosive device beneath me. And in my head, I heard this fizz, but I don't think I did. I think that's just like, I don't know. Anyway, I was thrown, and initially I was unconscious for about 3 or 4 seconds. And I remember being unconscious and lying there, and it was like being in the Millennium Falcon when it's going through hyperdrive, and all these stars were coming rushing at me, and I kind of asked a few questions. Am I injured? Anybody else injured? Can I treat them? And then I woke up and instantly knew that my world had changed forever and nothing was ever going to be the same again.
Just go. Excuse me. Just go back 2 seconds. So there was a huge explosion because I don't think you did yourself or did that any justice there. There was an explosion.
Yeah.
You was unconscious
Thrown.
for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, I was thrown.
Thrown.
Yeah.
And then when you woke, you was immediately thinking about everyone else.
When I was unconscious, certainly, yeah. I remember as in my unconscious state, I was thinking, is anybody else hurt and can I treat them?
Really?
And fortunately, as I later found out, there was nobody else injured as seriously as I was. There was a few minor stuff, but not, fortunately, I was the only person that was injured in the same way. And there was no fatalities either, which is unusual. So in the flashes of sort of gunfire, because there was a bit of a firefight going on, there was just bits of light going, that I could see. Amongst the dust and the smoke, I could see exactly what had happened. So my pants and my trousers had been blown off. My right leg was no longer there. That was gone. My left leg, in a similar way to the guy I treated before, it was degloved, so all the tissue from my ankle to my knee wasn't there. So I looked at that, and actually I don't remember what my left leg looked like. I remember everything else, but I just don't remember what my left leg looked like. But I do remember thinking that that's irretrievable. There's nothing you can do with that. My right testicle was hanging down my right leg, towards my knee, which was rather irritating. It was one of my favourites. My right arm... I'll stop there about that. And then my right arm was really damaged, but not irretrievable. It was dislocated and broken, and I had lots of shrapnel wounds, and it was kind of like a classic Afghan foot patrol IED injury, really, because the way the blast comes through your legs, it always affects the right arm because of the way you hold your weapon. So I was in a pretty bad... I couldn't treat myself, and I'm almost ashamed to say that, because a lot of the guys that I was at Heli Court with treated themselves, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't push myself up with my right arm off the floor. My Bergen or my rucksack was too heavy for me to lever myself up, so I was kind of like, I was helpless on the floor on my own, and at that point I wasn't a priority either. There was other stuff that was going on that needed to be sorted out before I became a priority.
Well, what like?
Just securing securing the surrounding area, actually finding out what had happened, winning this brief firefight that was going on, and then then it was right. What's going on? And someone shouted "medic," to which I replied, "I am the medic." And someone else went, oh poo. It might have been a bit stronger than that.
You can swear, don't worry.
And because they realised that the medic had been hit, and the problem that they had just got a little bit bigger. So they had to get their Valen man back out again with his metal detector to come and clear a route to me, because obviously they were worried that there were IEDs between me and them.
So secondary devices.
Yeah.
And
And actually there was. So I landed 3 foot away from another IED. One of the first guys that came to treat me, he was a Royal Engineer, and everybody thinks that Royal Engineers like fixing stuff. Well, they do, but they also like blowing stuff up as well. And his rucksack was full of plastic explosives, so you can only imagine what would have happened to the whole patrol if that had gone off with the other IED. They didn't want to treat me there. They did some stuff, and then they got me on one of the fabric stretchers that you can just stuff into a rucksack. They got me on that, and again, this happens to a lot of the guys. I fell out the stretcher. The guy on the end, the Royal Engineer, his eardrums had been blown out. He was really, really struggling. He was hyperventilating. He couldn't balance properly, and as a result, he dropped me, and I fell out of the stretcher.
Was he next to you when it blasted?
He was behind me, I think.
Okay.
But that's not unusual, and certainly I wouldn't blame him. It is what it is. And actually, I just remember it as an amusing episode, because I was like, oh, I'm on the floor again. This is ridiculous. And it also just
was it going for your back?
Yeah, I was like, and then they got me back in. I was like get me back in the stretcher.
Like some rubbish YouTube clip.
Yeah, like get him back in the stretcher. I was like, yeah, get me back in the stretcher. Anyway, they got me outside the patrol base, and the medic that I deployed with and another medic from the Coldstream Guards treated me and absolutely saved my life. What they did for me there, how can I ever repay what they did? So again, the tourniquets came out, pressure dressings. I was given, I had needles drilled into my bones to give me fluid and drug access.
On the ground?
Yeah. So I had one put into my sternum and one drilled into my humerus.
So these medics, you're the senior medic on the patrol, but there's medics within.
Yeah.
Like it's normal infantry guys who are medically trained who've done that. Who did that to you?
No. So I deployed with another medic,
right.
And also their med sergeant from the battalion. He deployed at that point. He was joining us on this operation.
Okay.
And without a shadow of a doubt, they saved my life.
Yeah.
They stopped me bleeding out, and they made sure I was alive when I got onto the Chinook.
So we got onto the Chinook. So that arrived in. We then was taken back to Bastion.
And actually, funny enough, when I remember landing, so I remember the whole process of me obviously getting onto the Chinook. We're 40 kilometres away from Camp Bastion. It takes 10 minutes because Chinooks are so fast.
The Chinooks are double.
Yeah, 2 propellers. Yeah. Landed, and the guys that helped take off casualties are the Camp Bastion Fire Brigade. And for me, it was like really poignant, because actually that was like, okay, that's the end of that dream. That's not happening anymore. And then I was loaded onto the ambulance, and then short distance taken to the emergency department outside Camp Bastion.
Do you remember any of that?
So I remember going from the dark to the light, and it was a real change in mood for me, because at that point I was holding on. I was holding on by my fingertips, because the pain was
to life.
Yeah, to life, and the pain was just ridiculous. Like, it was utterly ridiculous. When you stub your toe and you wait for it to build up, and it gets to a point, and then it kind of like starts to diminish. This just didn't diminish. It was like layered. It just got pain upon pain upon pain. And then I couldn't hold on to anymore. And I remember holding on to this nurse's hand. And in my head, it was this stunning, beautiful, amazing-looking nurse who was looking after me. And I've later found out it was a bloke with a massive, great big beard from the Royal Navy.
Equally as good looking.
Anyway, he was holding my hand, because I kind of needed that human contact, and he looked after me. He was there. He was someone there, and he looked after me until I was taken through to surgery, and then at that point I was put under.
I'm gonna fast forward as I think it's appropriate time to kind of jump us a little bit, and we arrived back in the UK.
Yep.
And this is where, well, with these conversations, we could speak for 5 hours about it, and we're going to have to jump over a lot of your life and a lot of the stuff that was going on. But how many operations did you initially have? That kind of
in the first week, Bastion, and then 2 in Selly Oak, but then that just rolled on and on and on and on.
And how many have you had up to date?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know, but so I've had surgery 2009, 10, 11, missed 12, 13 and 17 as well.
Major surgery. And we get back to the UK, wake up, assumingly.
On the Friday, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm assuming families around.
Yeah. So my wife, I remember, was on my left side, and there's a nurse on the right side. I can remember it being really blurry. Anyway, I was in the ITU. I was in there, and then everybody was allowed to come in sort of pairs. And so I've got my wife's got a twin brother and 2 brothers and sisters, and their partners. Obviously, my twin brother, my mum and dad, Marissa's mum and dad. So every man and his dog.
Quite a lot of people.
Yeah, and everybody got kissed. I didn't care who they were. I just kissed everybody.
Yeah.
Like even people that didn't want to,
Was you self-aware about this? Like, was you aware what was going on?
Yeah.
And the trauma you'd been
through?
through?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'd accepted what happened to me, apart from the stuff that had happened, testicularly. I was worried that I could have children because, bearing in mind, we'd only been married for 87 days at that point.
I suppose waking up and then realising that both legs had gone. Is that right at this time? Both legs had gone.
Yeah.
Both legs had gone, and one of the testicles had been removed as well. And I've spoke to a few, and it's kind of like these unseed injuries that go on, and we kind of forget really. But you alluded it there, actually, you did mention it, but was it bravado? Was it like being a man, or what? I think you've answered the question already, but was it about the future?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really important for me to have a family, and I didn't know what the future looked like for me if I couldn't do that. So I'd accepted what happened to my legs and my arm, and I was chuffed that I was going to keep my arm at that point, because it wasn't actually as serious as I initially thought. So really for me it was, is it still possible for me to be a dad? And fortunately it was, but I didn't know what that was going to look like initially, and I don't know how that would affect me in the future. And perhaps I can speak in hindsight, but I think I would have done something, whether it was adoption or something. We would have done something because having children in life was important to us.
Was it when you was thinking like this about family? Was it self-indulgent? Was it about you? Or
Yeah,
was
it was.
So it was. I want to be a dad.
Yeah, and actually, I want to be a father as well.
Yeah.
So you can. In hindsight, I'm looking at it from a really selfish point of view, I think. And perhaps with a little bit more clarity, if I hadn't been able to have children, we would have made a plan, and I'm sure that some of that would involve adoption. If we'd have been.
It's I think this is, we had a brief conversation yesterday, and we went over, and this is one of the things we went over, and again, these conversations can often seem on the outside very, very military. But actually, when we look into that, there's things like fertility issues that we're going through, which a lot of people go through, and then things like adoption, all these, and it's just crazy in a way that you've gone through this trauma, but you're thinking about the future, and you're thinking about other people like your wife, and about the children that aren't even born yet. And then so we move forward a little bit, and we start rehab at Headley Court. How, just for my own time frame, from injury, so from blast, from ID to
I was only in hospital.
Headley Court.
I was only in hospital for 5 weeks, and I was moved down to. Sorry, I was in Selly Oak for 5 weeks, and then I was moved to Headley Court on the 8th of December 2009.
I mean, can you just briefly overview what Headley Court is?
Yeah, so it's the Defence Medical Rehabilitation Centre. At that time, it was to maximum capacity, full of injured service personnel who shot, maimed individuals.
All physical injury.
Most of them, I'd say 90% of us were physical injuries. But there's also guys from the normal run-of-the-mill injuries.
Oh, okay.
So training exercises. Inevitably, there's always guys that have injured themselves on motorbikes.
Yeah.
So, but a large proportion of us were from Afghanistan.
Okay. Yeah, and what was normal day-to-day life like that? Because we're going to have to condense quite a lot of time into a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, we got thrashed there every day.
What do you mean?
Like physically. So there was physiotherapy, there was rehab, there was always some sort of circuit weight training thing going on. There was prosthetics, so it was really, really full diary. And the 3 or 4 weeks that you spent there, you left absolutely spent after that time.
So was you going in for a
Yeah.
periods of like intense physio and rehab, and then coming back home?
Then you'd come back, and actually it was really for two reasons. One, because it was capacity, there wasn't enough room to keep you there all the time, and two, because you did need a break from. So you're usually back at home for 2 weeks or whatever it was, 3 weeks, and then you'd be back again.
And was it all physical resilience and physical training, or was there anything on mental resilience, or was it so busy trying to sort the physical injury out?
So I suppose the mental side of stuff, there was two parts to it. One, the part that we fulfilled for each other without even knowing it.
Yeah.
But there was an aspect that was delivered to us by Headley Court, which I at the time didn't think was fit for purpose. And I'll be really brief in this story, but I went down for my first assessment, and I was just presented with 3 pieces of paper, which were all different types of test. And after the third one, I've been asked whether I want to self-harm or kill myself. Jokingly, I did. I didn't.
Yeah.
But I was angry at these questionnaires because I thought that they were completely impersonal. I thought that some of the younger guys might answer these questions for a positive answer, so they would slip through the net. And so I left on my wheelchair, went back up to the nurses' station, and in a very matter-of-fact voice, I said, "I'm really angry about that assessment," and I explained why. And then I was back down there the next day for anger management because I'd said I was angry.
I mean, even just the what you're explaining there, it doesn't sound fit. And me, although I'm from an outside point of view here, but I've spoken to many people about this, including psychiatrists and stuff. And those symptoms about suicide and whatnot, are they often way down the line?
I'll be honest with you, I thought I was going to have a personable conversation with an expert and to try and where they were going to use their expertise to draw stuff out of me. That's what I was expecting, and I didn't get that. And I thought that some blokes would slip through the net because of the way that initial sort of assessment was conducted.
Always think of someone else, Simon. That's ridiculous. I think it just shows you the testament of who you are. But so we're going through a lot of rehab now. Yeah. How long?
I was there for 4.5 years.
So in and out.
Headley Court. And it was a cycle of all those bits and pieces there, surgery, all those surgeries that I had. So sometimes it was, you would get to a certain point, need more surgery, then that whole process would start again.
Okay. So it's full on and a lot. Not reliving the trauma, but the body's going through quite a lot of trauma again and again and again, especially with the injury. And whilst we're doing this, I know that you do speaking and you speak to schools and some organisations and whatnot. And you linked up with a large military charity, and you were going and doing a lot of speaking about that. How was that relationship? How did you feel about getting out there and telling your story?
So I was really, I felt that I had to give back in some way, and there was also an element of well, I've been given something, so I need to replace that for the next guy that's coming through. And I think a lot of us felt the same way. So we kind of immersed ourselves in that, and I did it for quite a long time. I did it for a number of years, but I eventually started to feel very taken for granted for and used, for want of a better word,
because you're just getting pushed around.
Yeah.
Speaking.
And although we were getting expenses for what we were doing, it became really apparent that, well, one, we were the only people in the room that weren't on some sort of salary of who we were talking, whether it was a business we were talking to.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel almost guilty in saying what I'm saying, because, what I'm effectively asking for is to get paid from a charity to deliver a service. However, expenses wasn't really covering what we were doing. Just to give it, it was a day of preparation, a day to deliver what we were going to do, and then for a lot of us, it was a day to recover. So you're talking 3 days out of our life to deliver something where we weren't really being acknowledged for what we were doing.
Was you out of the army at this point? Or were you still?
No, still in.
Still in, yeah.
And it was just frustrating because we knew eventually we were going to be out, and we needed to set ourselves up. So we weren't trained to do it, and we were just kind of willed out, and we would deliver what we were going to do, and we did raise a lot of money.
Sorry, mate. Was it one charity? Who was it? Who were you working with?
It was for Health Heroes at the time.
Okay, and was it you the only person who was feeling like this, or was there multiple?
No, there was.
Was it a consensus of across the board?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So you were basically getting wheeled out.
That's what it felt
delivering,
like.
Yeah.
But I'm really conflicted because also the charity did do a huge amount for me as well.
Yeah.
So there was a massive amount of confliction. However, a thank you doesn't really put food on the table for my kids.
Yeah.
And I wasn't invested in any way. I wasn't trained to do what I was doing. And I was looking for the long term and how I was going to support my family, knowing full well that I was going to be out of the army very soon.
Are you, mobility-wise, as in like physical mobility-wise, are you in wheelchair at this time, or are you in...
No, I'm on prosthetic legs.
Now, but then as well?
Yeah.
So you've always pretty much been on prosthetic legs?
Yeah. So I was walking less than 2 months after I was injured.
Okay. All right. So you, just to recap that last little bit there, well, I think you've said it actually, and you wasn't prepared. You're doing a lot of this talking, not getting paid for it, which then leads me on, and it's something I was told about a couple of weeks ago, which is obviously I know about Blesma, but they do a kind of speaking package now.
Yeah, and actually, funnily enough, it's the exact same thing that I kind of asked, that I proposed to Help for Heroes, and then 2 years later, another charity, which is Blesma, the British Limbless Ex-Servicemen Association, they're delivering exactly what I've described. So we go into schools and deliver a workshop. This year we've seen 10,000 school children from secondary school up to the university, and it's not just nice schools. We go into pupil referral units. I've been to some pretty heavy schools, but they train us. So we come to London. We are given the tools to deliver what we are going to say and how we're going to operate in the workshops, and we get refresher training. But key to this whole thing is the fact that we get paid. We don't get a huge amount. We get £200, and we get our expenses. However, what that does is, on so many different levels, it fulfills, I think, certain human requirements, and that's earning, being paid for your time, which I just think it delivers so many things.
Well, meaningful employment's so important to everyone across the board, and I bang on about it all the time, actually having meaning and purpose, whether that's sweeping a floor of McDonald's, whether it's speaking, whether it's owning your own little business, whatever it is, actually having the purpose beyond what you actually do. Speaking is one thing, actually speaking with a purpose and a reason, and being very structured, and also getting paid and feeling valued is vital.
Yeah, and value is the key here. It's absolutely feeling valued for something. And I can't bang on about the Blesma Community Programme enough, because the people that run it, the Drive Project, what they do is incredible, and they have changed. Certainly, the veterans that participate in the programme, they have changed their lives utterly.
We often see guys who have lost limbs and whatnot, and they're really out there at the Olympics and doing some great stuff. But I'm assuming, and I'm not well informed enough, I don't think. But is everyone doing well?
Not everybody. There seem to be sort of two camps at Headley Court. Those that really wanted to excel in something, and you can almost see those guys and where they were going to end up.
Yeah.
And they probably didn't even know where they were going to end up whilst they were at Headley Court. But some of them are doing some incredible things. Guys have written books. Guys have gone to the Olympics. They've done some incredible challenges. They're on the TV. They're driving cars. They're doing some incredible, amazing things. And also, and that's in the limelight. But then you've got other guys that are not necessarily in the limelight, but are still doing some pretty amazing things with various different corporations or organisations, and they're really, filling a gap. And so they can do a proper job.
So they've really,
yeah.
And we always talk about this on here, but we've really grown because of trauma.
They've grown post-traumatically. Yeah, absolutely.
You really went over you said a word called community a second ago, and I want to bring you to your micro community really, and family life and the future of you guys really, and what does it hold for you?
So for me, it's all about my family. And one of the questions you get, however you've got your disability, is a lot of the questions you get are you going to go to the Olympics, and have you got blades? No, I'm not going to go to the Olympics. No, I haven't got blades. For me, it's my family are what I get out of bed for in the morning, and it's my job to provide for them in some way, and to give them a nice, comfortable life. So although I'm still kind of like I'm doing my thing, but it's not really enough at the moment.
I think, well, looking from the outside in, you're doing some great stuff. Yeah,
I'd love to write a book, but I want to do it myself. I don't want to get a ghostwriter to do it, and I've already started. But it's proper Johnny age 5. I'll have to draw some pictures with it as well.
Yeah.
But then it comes down to the thing is, does anybody want to read about?
I think they will.
Wow.
I 100% think they will. I think I don't want to speak for your family. I'm sure they're super proud of what you've done, and just listening to your the military career that you've had, and then knowing a little bit about afterwards. And again, this could be hours long, and that's why the book's so important, to fill in gaps and do everything else. And to kind of finish where we started with that yes or no answer, I think it's pretty obvious why you said yes, you would sign on.
Well,
sign the dotted line.
Yeah, and before we finish, one thing I will say is, a nurse said to me in hospital, she said to try and find 3 good things from 1 bad. I was lying there. I was like, no, it's got to be 5 good things. It's got to be 5. So I was like trying to compete with this nurse that was trying to help me. Anyway, so it was my job at that point is to try and find 5 good things from 1 bad. And initially there were small things like watching Homes Under the Hammer on TV, or getting my wedding ring back, and when that got sent back to me, along with my watch that had got blown up, which still works. And then my challenge was to make those things bigger. So it wasn't just, all right, I'm watching Homes Under the Hammer again this week. Brilliant, that's good. No, I'm watching Homes Under the Hammer, but it's down in the cafe downstairs. So it was, for me, it was like, and that allowed me to move forward and look forward.
Small goals again and again.
Yep.
Get bigger and bigger. Simon, we're going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you.